Okay. Welcome, everyone. Come on in and relax. Thank you, thank you. Happy Equinox. We are here tonight for the Soul Sisters Seasonal Circle. Thank you for that. And we are celebrating the turn of the wheel, the fall harvest, and all that good stuff. All right. So our fall in the winter, spring, summer, fall rhythm. Here we are. The one of 2 times a year that we have access to literal physical balance. So we're diving into the season and grateful to be here. This time of balance that we're tapping into has to do with the harvest time. Now we've gone 9 months through the year. What have we created? What have we connected to? What have we built? What have we cultivated? What is got roots now? What is working? This is assessment time where we see what's working and what's not. All of that good stuff is in play. If you are still doing some purifications and getting yourself healthy from the Virgo season, we're just slipping into Libra. And I've talked about it a lot on the way, because Cancer gives us that personal security internally, and Leo helps us shine our light, and then Virgo helps us put it all together in something that is natural and rooted within you in a sacred way. And then hopefully you're strong enough to go into Libra, Scorpio, Sag, where we mix it up with other people and we start activating other kinds of lessons and blessings, right? This is the season where you get that reflection back for whatever self-work or soul work you've been able to do for the first 6 months of the year. Basically, Aries to Libra or spring to fall is where our year starts. So we're at the halfway point in the solar year, looking at what we've been able to cultivate and what can it really serve us. Gathering and harvesting has to do with assessing what you've been able to produce and accomplish, let's say, in the last 6 to 9 months. The evaluate and rectify is all about assessing what worked and what didn't. We want to really look at that and not waste our energy, on things that aren't taking already 9 months into the year. And sometimes I tell folks, it's not that it's not a good idea or what have you. It just might be the wrong timing, which is another thing that we tap into in the Virgo section of our chart, is what's right timing or natural timing for you, the individual. So we want to be tapped into that too, as we go into the Libra season, where we might want to do some collaborating with others on any level, right? Intimately or otherwise. Balancing and integrating, of course, because we're at the midpoint. And some of you have heard me say the midpoint is the best course correcting time in any cycle. So this is our annual cycle. And we want to look at, again, if it's not quite working and it just needs a little tweak, that's one thing. If it hasn't taken root at all or bearing any fruit at all, then it's got to get out of the way and let us use the energy and resources we have for what is working. And then assessing what we need to do, have, or be more or less of, right? We want to get that balance. Where are you out of balance in your internal systems and your external dealings with others, right? How's that balance and reciprocity? Because we're definitely looking to cultivate that going forward. And then we pause for the cause. At all turns of the wheel, we take a pause. That's why we light the fire and we get together in community and we share our stories of the season, how it's been going, what's been happening. And we do these things in a rhythm that I'm always harping on, trying to get folks in a different kind of rhythm than, let's say, the Gregorian calendar or the clocks and calendars of the world. What we do here is we follow the moon and the sun and the nature's rhythms, right? And that's what we tap into. Now, when they start screwing with the time, I don't even deal with all that. I do day and night, light and dark. And I do flip my sleep schedule so that I can get up earlier and have more of those daylight hours in the fall. But it's still because I want to shift because of the season, not because they changed the clocks, right? So we want you to get into that rhythm that feels natural and good for you and allows you to be the most functional and the most optimal best, right? That's the other thing. Virgo's going for not perfection, but wholeness. So as we come out of that season, hopefully we've integrated a few things and we're feeling whole on a certain level, because every season counts, y'all. Like I said, we do winter, spring, summer, fall as Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. There's lots of action and choices and changes and movement that's coming, right? And we're out of Mercury retrograde, but we're approaching a Mars retrograde. So even though we've changed our thinking, now we're going to have to change our actions and choices. So yes, we want to work what's natural, what feels right, what allows you, like we said, to feel good going into whatever. So you start to look at your rhythm, and some of this I teach in the way of your sun sign. Okay, you have your birthday. I'm a July 1st Cancer, so I have July to July, but I'm a Sag rising, which is December. My chart starts December 2nd. So basically from December to June, I'm working on me. And then from June to December, I'm doing more with you all. And that has become a natural rhythm that I understand, that I can flow with. And if anything messes with it, then I can stick and move. I can deal with it, but it's not my preference, right? I know what the rhythm should be. And that's why once you tap into what's natural for you, you can tell when things are out of sync and be like, that's not going to really work for me. And the more you honor your boundaries in that way, then the less you have to explain yourself or even put yourself in certain situations. So we love that about this season, because this is the season that puts a big spotlight on relationships, partnerships, and collaborations, and how balanced and reciprocal are they? Is the energy that you're putting out coming back to you in the way that you want it to, that allows your system to be healthy and balanced? So if we did our proper processing in this Virgo zone, like I talk about, if we do the processing, then making the choices and decisions about who to mix it up with now going forward is really going to be easier. And then once we get to Scorpio, whatever we've decided to agree to, because Libra is also those contracts and justice and all kinds of things that we're calling in on higher levels in other areas of life as well. And then we go to Scorpio, the fixed energies, where we anchor permanently or release permanently. So based on the choices and decisions we're about to make over the course of the next month, that following month, when we go into deep ancestor season, we always use this time to ask the ancestors to give us the feedback and the guidance on the year we just walked through, and to give us the heads up on what's coming in the new year so we can prepare. So that's why October, November, December is pretty dedicated to the ancestors, because we go in for winter in this hemisphere anyway. We go in for winter. And so we are pulling inward. The light is withdrawing as well. We want to do more things behind closed doors. It doesn't mean there's not going to be activity and things to do, but we want to do it on our own behind closed doors. And we have some crazy energetic support, y'all. So I want to talk about the chart, and the Sky Council is interesting too. Oh, our chart is actually ruled by Libra. That's amazing. So when we look at the Sky Council, we're looking at the pattern when the sun moves to 0 Libra and what's happening up in the sky. And because we're in America, most of the time I do my charts for Washington, D.C., because that's what affects us the most. So this is kind of a unifying chart in that way. But it's the 4 corners. It's the cardinal 4 corners. So there's so many choices and decisions to be made around home and work and self versus other. You, the individual, within the context of your relationships and commitments and things. And we're definitely recalibrating all of that. All the Libras in the 12th house, though, y'all, except for Venus, Sun, South Node, and Juno, again, how we do our commitments, but intimacy in particular, are in the 12th house. 12th house is like self-sabotage and the subconscious and the unconscious, where we're not aware of what we're attracting and magnetizing. With Libra, it's our magnetics. It's what we magnetize in based on our self-worth and self-value and what we feel like we're worthy of. And that whole food, sex, and money thing comes up. And with Venus in her rulership, in her power in Libra, at 29 degrees at the most powerful degree in the first house, is also showing us that we're going to bring that balance back into our own being first. We're going to be reciprocal with our own energy and get those channels flowing, like the limnus. How do you say that? Yeah, the figure 8.
The cosmic lemniscape.
Yes, that thing there, that flows from our heart out to the electromagnetic field and back through our hearts in this figure 8 that's constantly flowing. When we charge that and work with that flow, we get more light and we become more magnetic. And so we're going to dedicate all that energy to ourselves for this season. If, you know, it really needs to be the harvest of what's going to support and protect you going forward. So consider your needs and your desires, your relationships and finances, and what you want with that. And with Aries across the way, it means we remain independent within any of the partnerships. So you always want to have your own thing going on, even within the context of what you do with other people. So another way I put that in the old days, I used to call it having your base and then building bridges out to all these other little communities and things that we do with other people, and knowing that some bridges are going to get used more than others. That's just how it goes. But that you always come back home to the base and recharge. And so we're working on that as well. We have the Cancer Capricorn reversed as well. Now, in my opinion, when the signs are reversed on the houses, meaning Libra ruling the Aries house, then it gives it a balance to it. I like that. What you got, Mama?
My question is, as we're building bridges, and you said some will be used more than others, is there a way to identify the bridges that are going to collapse or that should be torn down?
Oh, yeah. That is going to be obvious right at this moment, at this time, because we've just come through Mercury retrograde assessing all that in Leo Virgo. What's healthy, what's authentic, who do we want to communicate with, who do we want to create with, how do we want to express? All that's recently been reset. And so because our thinking and consciousness has been reset, I think the frequency has been reset. And now that's not going to work with certain collaborations. And I tell people is everyone's a season and a reason. So they're not going to drop off and it's an awful morning thing. Let them drop off, because if they're meant to be, they'll circle back at a higher, stronger level.
Ashe, thank you.
You got it. Absolutely. So the Cancer Capricorn dynamic puts Cancer on the 10th house career zone and Capricorn at home. So you know me, some of y'all have heard me say this too. We want to treat family like a business and business like a family. And what I mean by that is our DNA family members, we might need some really good boundaries and protocols and rules and regulations and things that keep everybody in line with the DNA, because there's so much karma there and there's so much healing that has to happen. And some of us are working at different speeds and we got different things going on like that. So we can't account for where folks are at in their levels, right? You can only work on you. So bring that back in, put that love and passion into your purpose. That's what the top of the chart, the 10th house, is all about: your purpose and your contribution to society and your reputation, what you want to be known for. Cancer energy nurtures and contains and protects. So create the container that you want that's going to hold your new path and purpose, which has also been activated by the Aries North Node. Everyone's getting a little taste of an upgrade to go in a new direction that is more self-centered in the highest possible way that you could do that. So we have been getting to know better, what our individual needs are. I like the direction that things are going post-COVID, in that the break to realign that COVID was is now allowing us to choose who we're going to interact with and on what levels are we going to interact. No more do we have to be subjected to just anything, anywhere, anytime. If you're in a frequency that don't feel right, and you can say, I'm out, and nobody can say shit. You can just be like, this frequency don't work for me, I'm out. And it's okay. And everybody's good with it. So I love that, because now you can cultivate the community, dedicate yourself to the energy, the community, and the purpose that you want to commit to, and put it where it can grow, right? Because it's not going to grow if we're feeling confined by social collective madness, right? That's not going to work either. So the fundamentals, that's the other thing about Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. They're the fundamentals. They're the very basics. Everybody got to deal with self and other. Everybody got to deal with home and work. So that's the turn of the season. That's why it's kind of chaotic and hectic. Now, some of the juicy specifics, also Pluto's down in that 4th house at 29 Capricorn. So you see Venus and Pluto are squared at 29. So if our values don't change about self-preservation, the first law of nature, which is completely essential for us, and if our values and our priorities don't change around how we bring ourselves to certain partnerships and collaborations, then it's going to be a hard way to go, because the Pluto is in this purification zone. And it's basically reworking your sacred space and your spiritual practices. We're supposed to be talking to our body every day and our spirit every day. That's supposed to be the practice right now because of Saturn and Pisces. And we only have this 2 years to anchor 30 years of what's going to really hold and support us going forward. Which brings me to Saturn, who's in the super creative zone. So I love that Yeye is sitting in her art room and painting and creating, because Saturn in Pisces is the creator bringing things into form. Do it, baby. We love you. And we can't wait to see what you come up with next. I love it. Thank you, Yeye. And so we want to think about those fundamentals and what's essentially changing. And then Chiron, who's at 22, I mean, that's a little ways from 29, but it's still there in the 7th house of other people. So healing and education is coming through your interactions with other people. That's how that's working. So get the most out of it, get all the good you can, so that when you move on, it's all good. But at the same time, this puts the spotlight on, don't do anything unhealthy for your system. This is also, I've been saying, because of some of the activations in the weekly forecast, it ain't time to be slick, y'all. The slicksters are about to get hurt. Okay, it is for real, for real. Kelly, did you say the next 2 years is going to root the next 30? Yes, Neef. I said that is Saturn in Pisces, anchoring our spiritual practices. For 2.5 years, we've been really recalibrating that and getting closer to our spirit team, making it more real. That's going to anchor the 30-year cycle till Saturn gets back there. So yes. So that's the Sky Council. The energetic support had me almost going down crazy rabbit holes. I had to catch myself and pull back because 25 and 26 have some amazing, ridiculous, once in a lifetime activations coming because the big boys are all mixing it up. The social collective planets are all touching each other, which creates the movement and change we're feeling in our social collective realm as well. Yep. And it's in our, as within, so without, baby. As above, so below, all of it. So the first thing we look at is the moon, and we're definitely in Aries, Libra eclipses, the final little zone as we shift to Virgo, Pisces. So we're still in change mode, and the new moon solar eclipse is in Libra, October 2nd. And that's a big deal because we're not just resetting how we do relationships this year annually, the solar cycle, the sun moving back annually. It's the 10 and 20 year North Node cycle that Aries Libra is being activated with. So we're changing in wherever Aries Libra is for you. It's been changes going on and upset. I call them wake ups, shake ups, and breakups, honey. It can't be avoided. And so it's important for us to pay attention to the bigger themes that might be circling back or repeating around our relationships and things. I don't know about y'all, but I joke all the time about the mistake I made with the last man before my husband, y'all. It was a March 6th Pisces cop who was married and I didn't know for like 6 months, got to Chicago like 3 years later, a March 6th sheriff who was engaged. I was like, you ain't got no good picker no more. You're fired. You pick no more men. You're fired. And that was it. But when you can really see your mistakes that clearly, then you know you don't want to repeat those mistakes. So we're shifting out of the changes that are happening to the self versus other Aries Libra zone to, again, that Pisces Virgo, what's healthy for your system and what are you actually going to be able to maintain. So thinking about that as you're dreaming and imagining these new relationships and possibilities, yes, because Jupiter's in Gemini expanding our networks. We are going to have more connections and more community obligations and more things to do in that way. If you're the holder, if you're the container holder, you're going to be busy. Right. And you were working on so much creativity, again, with the artist being activated, thinking about what you were creating 10 and 20 years ago and how to bring that back and go to a higher level with it. Right. Every time a cycle repeats, I tell people this all the time, all cycles repeat. They hit the same thing over and over in your chart. But what changes is the sky pattern is different. Who's up there mixing it up at the time the cycle circles back? And you're different. And who you're around is different. Everything is different each time the cycle comes back, even though they're repetitive. So the last time we were on this cusp was basically 2000 to 2006 was our zone that we've been in now for like 2 years going into the next 2 years. So that whole early 2000s is the full 20-year cycle that has ended and is being initiated. So think about the relationship choices you were making, the job choices, the house choices, the community choices, and how much you had to hold for yourself and how much you actually had help and support from others. And what kind of new patterns do you want to put in place? Because the other thing about eclipses is another break the realign energy, and that is an interruption in the light allows us to reset our systems in a certain kind of way so that we can break those neural pathways, right? Now, the Aries full moon that goes with this eclipse coming October 17th is a super full moon, which means it's bigger, it's closer, the alignment is tighter, the pulls on our waters is stronger. So we have to be mindful of these full moons, but full moons are all about clearing and releasing. So it's going to shine that light on that part of you that's no longer you, like you've upgraded. That identity and purpose is shifted, if nothing else in the last year, but certainly add the eclipses to it. And we're talking 10 and 20 years, who you were 5, 10, 15. Look at the 5-year marks with the North Node is a 20-year cycle that moves in 5-year increments. And we feel into that for our path pivot points. You know, when the path pivots, you can start to feel it. Jupiter's our consciousness, a 12-year cycle that moves in 3-year increments. So our consciousness evolves every 3 years. If we would co-create with that, we could tell a more interesting story. And then Saturn's the 28-year cycle that moves in 7-year increments. So I tell people the 3, 5, 7 are the years you need to tap into and be mindful of and know what's happening for you personally. So as we shift with calling in the new balance and reciprocity, the new things we want within ourselves, we're also going to move to this through the Scorpio Taurus lunation before at least the Scorpio new moon, which is November 1st. And the Taurus full moon is November 15th. So this lunation ends up coinciding again with ancestor season. We're conceiving the new year. Where Scorpio, I would say Scorpio and Taurus bring in this little dynamic that we can understand with body and soul for our physical person, but also I look at Taurus as the earth and mother and food and flowers and all the goodness and things that we can manifest and make and create. But Scorpio is the breath of God that breathes life into that. It's the invisible power that we all have access to, but we need to learn how it works for us as individuals. So every year on that lunation, we're asking for the new sense of self, the new sense of power with the Scorpio new moon, but also in a way that you can handle, in a way that is safe, in a way that allows you to be super creative, because Scorpio is also creation, right? We're creating at that point. We're churning in that darkness what is going to be birthed in the spring. So this lunation is personal in that you're shifting. There's things that are being stripped away that are no longer you so that you can go and interact with others. There's a lot of folks that won't be magnetized until your vibration shifts a little bit to this, that, wherever you're headed. So make sure that frequency, we want that vibrational match with our people where we feel that comfortable essence, that comfortable vibration. And Mercury, like I said, finally out of retrograde zone for equinox and moving through Libra, Scorpio. And then when it gets to Sag, it's going to retrograde again. So we want to really make the most out of our creative ideas and getting really deep with our soul work and let's say the processing that you've been able to do to get the deep, powerful aha moments out of that. Again, we're doing this year assessment and then thinking a little bigger with the 10 and 20-year assessment sort of in the back of your mind, keeping that always there. Venus is going to move through Scorpio and Sag during this season. And so she's again in her power in that zone and brings up those karmic relationships and those learning experiences that we go through with relationships and finances. So being mindful as she moves through there. But if you have Scorpio Sag, then she's moving through that zone, activating values and priorities upgrade. Like, how are things going there? What do you really care about? What are you magnetizing? What are you repelling? How do you, again, need to recalibrate your frequency so that magnetic field is working for you the way you want it to? That's important. And that's our sacred feminine. So we are going into, I always say Scorpio takes us down inward to the soul and a lot of times down on our knees. But Sag brings us back up with the vision, with the higher vision, with the expanded vision of what that soul work was all about. And then you're able to tell a story with it. So all throughout this year too, we're upgrading our story. It's going to be a lot this season for sure. We're feeling it too. And then Mars is warming up. In September, it's in Cancer. September, October, it's in Cancer. So if you have Cancer energy, it's a big deal because it's leaning on the Cancer Leo zone of your chart, asking you to upgrade who you are and what you want, to upgrade your masculine, how you get things done in the world, how you negotiate on your own behalf, and how you make your ideas tangible, right? That's our masculine side of things. So Mars is resetting, which it does every 2 years. And I always tell people this is an 8-month process that gives us a 16-month return. It's a 24-month cycle. So Mars retrograde is warming up. Mars resets so much. Okay, so we were talking about Mars retrograde and how it's leaning on Cancer. Ooh, Leo. Now when the fire pops, y'all, that's important to note. So we all need to be mindful of the rewiring going on with our masculine in Cancer Leo. Which again, it's so personal. It's how you feel about certain things. And it's how you take care of yourself and how you share yourself and shine your light in Leo and all of that. So when Mars comes through, it's who are you and what do you want in terms of your personal security and your creative output and what you're sharing with others in whatever way that you're sharing yourself, your light that way. So yeah, baby, the Cancer Leo zone is Mars is rewiring things because it's time. Like the last time it rewired here was like in the 80s, y'all. But it goes backwards every 2 years. So we're just looking at the reset of how we do and be in the world. That happens every 2 years. Like I tell folks, if we would pay more attention to that 2 year Mars thing, we would be in better sync with things. Because what happens usually, it shows up in relationships. You go along 2, 4, 6, 8 years and you look up and you're not the same person. But really, you've been 4 people in 8 years. So if you could break and talk to your partner at that time or talk to your people, like, I really don't want to do that way anymore. I don't really, I'm not magnetized. I'm not attracted to that. Mars is our passion and what we really want and how we go about getting it. So I think the upgrade also has to do with how we feel on the inside and then what we do on the outside to get it done, to make things happen. So let's be mindful of this zone. Like I said, September, October, Cancer, and then October, November into December, Leo is where it retrogrades. And then it'll go back and forth. But we're in this process all the way to June of 2025, y'all. So pace yourself. The other thing about a Mars retrograde is that it does put a little damper on your energy sometimes. What I tell people is any retrograde, in my opinion anyway, is that it's a reversal. So if life is already a mess and sideways, then a retrograde can be helpful because it pulls the world back away from you and allows you to get some shit done to reset yourself so that you're not a mess when you go back out. So that turnabout actually can be helpful. And then if things are going well and you have a turnaround with Mars of who you are and what you want, that delay is divine, y'all. That delay is letting you look a little deeper so that you don't make a choice that you can't step back on. And so it's important for us to move slowly and not make too much of deep commitments in those Cancer Leo departments. Really try to know those houses, y'all. And in the Mars retrograde, you all got your post-call goodies. If you didn't get those, just hit that registration and I'll send them to you so you can know where that is for you. But yeah, Mars is definitely going to reset things. And then everybody else is busy. What I wanted to talk about in terms of that's energetic support. That's sort of the overview. But we have very specific activations coming that are important. First of all, Mars and Venus are going to mix it up with Saturn in Pisces because Mars is going to be in the water sign Cancer and Venus is going to be in the water sign Scorpio, which connects with Saturn, the water sign Pisces. So when we talk about the water energies, we always say that Cancer feels it for the family, Scorpio feels it for the individual, and Pisces feels it for the world. So there's the other reason why the Virgo Pisces eclipses are going to recalibrate our boundaries so that we can not be in overwhelm, so that we can really keep our systems tight the way they need to be. Then we function better, right? So think about the ease and grace of your masculine feminine connecting with Saturn, the reality and purpose planet, and basically how you get things done, how you do anything, how you make, how you create. All of that is getting an upgrade and some ease and grace if we can use our emotions and our feeling nature and feel what's necessary, feel what's right. Again, with intuiting that right timing for you, the individual. It's so deep for the water energies to be mindful that we need the earth energies to balance out the water to give the flow of structure. When we have good boundaries, the water's healthy, it's clean, it's moving, it's not stagnant, and it's not all over the place. So we like earth to help with that water. So get in your body if your emotions are getting churned up, because that's a lot of energy. And all three activated at the same time in that personal way can be some sort of waves we have to negotiate with. So then the other thing we're looking at besides Mars and Venus mixing it up with Saturn, basically our season goes from now, September 22nd, through the first week of November. So all of October has some interesting juju going on. Venus and Mars are also going to mix it up because they're in water signs with Uranus and Taurus. So we're awakening and liberating certain aspects of self too. Again, it's back to practical earth, Taurus, what is practical? What are your essential needs? What do you need to function and feel healthy and happy and whole, right? And then where have you been waking up to those facts where your essential needs need to be taken care of before you can do anything else? That's where Uranus has kind of been cracking us open on a personal level. In the social collective, it's getting us present to Mama and Mother Earth and how, and the technology and that combination of real life and virtual life is up. It's been up for renewal for the last 6-7 years, because that's how long Uranus stays in the sign. So that's a huge process that is wrapping up. It's in the 26, 27, 28, 29 degree zone. But now again, the masculine feminine has to change. Something has to change in how we do these things. So thinking about where you're willing to change, because when Uranus and Pluto are kicking, you got to be willing to choose change. Otherwise it gets imposed on you. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. Uh-oh. Creatures, what do you see? Okay, the last time I heard that sound, y'all, a hawk flew in here and caught a dove right here. And it's the dove flying from something. Oh God. Oh my God. I think something's chasing it again, y'all. It was a baby hawk. I have pictures. I'll put them in the post call goodies. Oh man. Oh my God. If that happened on camera, y'all, I would lose my mind. So again, with nature validating our time for changes and upgrades in the masculine feminine, how we do anything. Let's be mindful of that Uranus cracking us open, because imagine this too. We want to get okay with the changes in our physical realm and our creature comforts and personal security, because once it goes into Gemini, it's going to be very tech heavy, y'all. It's going to be a lot of crazy information and a lot of exchange across the world, and a lot to process. Right? So we want to be really grounded in our bodies before all that gets activated, even more air. And Jupiter's already warming up because it's in Gemini. How are we looking over here? Well, at least you can see the fire on the camera. So that was one thing. And then what was the rabbit hole? So I go down the rabbit hole because all this is happening in October. What it is because Uranus is in Taurus and Neptune's in Pisces. Now we got the big boys going at it too in earth and water. So we're still in body and soul territory. Now we're in our values and priorities versus that big dream and the vision and the imagination that Pisces activates. We are waking up to some new things, and we're also letting some things go because Pisces is the end. And we've completed so much of this old dream, this American dream, right? All that. We're redreaming. We're reimagining the new world. If you've been anywhere near some of Yeye's sock med, you know we're calling in this new world and defining it ourselves to do it and using our own imaginations. And that ease and grace, that ease between earth and water is an opportunity. That's what's so juicy about the big boys touching, because now at the same time, Pluto's at 29 Capricorn. So it's in an earth energy. And now we've got Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all connected in a sextile, which is an opportunity to gain some traction, to really get some traction under our belts around the transformation. Basically, there's not really another way to say that. So we want to use the big boys. This is the other thing, because they're the collective. A lot of astrologers will say, well, it doesn't even affect us. Don't even think about it. But I don't. I say, let them do the heavy lifting. If you're ready for your earth and water zones to operate at a new level, then allow Pluto to carry out all this Capricorn nonsense of the government, institutions, healthcare, education, everything that is done the old way. Now we want to dream up and imagine something that's a little more Aquarius, which is good for the community, good for the individuals, and something where we create the kind of team energy that Aquarius can bring up sometimes. So that was it. And then Mars retrograde activation. So there'll be a special post for that too. And I talked about it on the replay. So that's up on the podcast channel as well. But it's going to have an opportunity with Uranus, a ease and grace with Neptune, and an integration process with Pluto. And let me just tell you, Mars and Pluto are the higher and lower octaves of each other, right? So they're related. They're both related to Scorpio in various ways. And so we look at that as an integration of higher will and lower will at that point. And that's going to be happening exactly November 3rd when we're in New Orleans. The power is going to be deeply activated, y'all. So we do have a lot of support for what we're trying to do. And that ease and grace and those opportunities, that's fine. But because it's happening in a retrograde, there's going to be some back and forth, which means we're changing our minds about self-care and what really nourishes and feeds and fulfills us. We want to look at that. And we're changing the vision. We're dreaming in a way that is more inclusive and healthy for your people, for your community and your tribe and the people that you're in service to, as well as your family and friends and people like that. All of that is also evolving with you having to develop certain boundaries and structures to protect yourself as you go to do more work in the community. Does that make sense? So that's up for everyone. And so there's this recalibration and this reorganization that has to happen. So then we have that integration with Pluto. So again, with just changing on the deepest possible level and choosing it, choosing the upgrade, choosing the transformation. The other thing I would remind you is what's been coming up for me is the distinction being made between the snake who sheds its skin and it's still a snake versus a butterfly that changes from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Some of us are completely rebirthing ourselves into new entities. And then others are just already know their path and purpose and are shedding the skin of what no longer works, that's run its course. You know, I change up a lot with a lot of the things that I do around here because I like to move with the seasons and the changes with the planets in the sky and things like that. So I give myself permission to do all that. But yeah, Mars retrograde is going to lean on the big boys too. So in the ease and grace that we have beforehand, in terms of the way they're touching beforehand, is really nice. But then it's going to go into a process of who you are and what you want has got to change in some way in order to reap those benefits that the big boys can bring us. And then Saturn is going to mix it up with Uranus like 5 times over in the coming years. And all that's happening in spring. And that was the rabbit hole, y'all. I started to go too far in the future. I'm like, stay in 6 weeks, Kelly. We're just talking about the next 6 weeks. And that takes us to November 3rd. Then we look at our animal guide is spider for the month of September. And housekeeping is around your lens and your filters. We're composting overwhelm and we're seeding new rhythms and routines. The prayers are around discernment and sustenance. Oh my God, it was a big bird, y'all. It just went by though. I think it might have been a raven chasing that mourning dove. Oh my God. But our prayers for spider go around discernment and sustenance and weaving skills. And journal prompts are around order and organization, systems and practices, weaving, and synthesis, how we synthesize things. And then our Mad Libs would be around work and purpose, variety and uniqueness, and safety and protection. So these are all issues that are kind of up for the month too. So we want to think about those things as they relate to your everyday world and how they might come up. And we have tools that are in the classroom where this replay will be and where you all registered. I've got all kinds of extra bonus goodies in there as well. I'm so grateful. I'll cut out the energetic support and put that on the podcast channel. But thank you everyone for holding it down and staying with me late.